morning, Acadiana, and thank you for tuning in to Local News Live. Today is Tuesday, January 26th. This is a production of AOC Community Media in partnership with the Acadiana Advocate. Their team of journalists print the news that is important to our community and state, and we're happy to read you some of those stories. You can hear Local News Live Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. on AOC 1, the AOC Community Media channel on YouTube, and Cypress Street Radio at aocinc.org/CS radio. You can find the print versions of these stories and more at theadvocate.com. We couldn't bring you this community service without the generosity of our volunteer newsreaders. Today, we are joined again by Bruce Cohen. Bruce, welcome to Local News Live, and thanks for being here.
Well, no problem whatsoever. Good morning, Matt. Appreciate you being at the helm of the tech aspect of our Local News Live. Thank you so much. And if you wish, you can go listen, or you can tune me off, whatever you want.
I'm gonna go listen on Cypress Street. Thanks again, Bruce.
Thank you, Matt. Well, good morning, Acadiana. It is Tuesday, January 26th, the year 2021. And we will start off as we normally do with Acadiana stories. A hate crime charge added to case of brutal attack on gay teen by Megan and Wyatt staff writer. Chance Seneca, who was jailed for brutally attacking a gay man during a Grindr date last summer, is now facing a hate crime charge in addition to attempted second-degree murder. The new charge was added Wednesday, according to court records. Seneca, 19, is accused of inflicting life-threatening injuries on Holden White, then 18, and the two agreed to meet June 20th. Lafayette police initially said they didn't have enough evidence to charge Seneca with a hate crime, prompting outcry from family, friends, and advocates. The FBI soon got involved in the case. White and Seneca met through the online dating app Grindr, which is primarily used by gay and bisexual men. After talking through the app for a few weeks, White said he agreed to a June 20th date with Seneca. Seneca would insist on picking up White from his apartment, according to messages sent through Grindr. White said Seneca took him to his house to play video games. Instead, Seneca tortured White and left him for dead and called 911 to report the crime, according to White's account of the incident. White suffered from strangulation that popped nearly every blood vessel in his face, 6 stab wounds to the neck, blunt force trauma to his head, and cut so deep to his wrists that his hands were nearly sawed off. He spent days in a coma and nearly a month in the hospital. He continues to receive physical and occupational therapy. As White recovered, he spoke out about the attack and advocated for a hate crime charge to be added to Seneca's second-degree murder charge. White said he believes he was attacked specifically because of his sexual orientation. He could have done this to a woman, White said during a December interview. Instead, he chose to do it to someone who is gay and proud about his sexuality. The hate crime charge comes 7 months after the attack. Seneca remains at the Lafayette Parish Correctional Center on a $250,000 bond. His next court appearance is scheduled for March 4th. Moving on, a Louisiana Community and Technical College System, Equity Workforce at Core System Goals by Ken Stickney, staff writer. Louisiana's 2-year college system leaders are seeking a new roadmap for this decade, according to serve the state's people by connecting them to good jobs and emerging new economy. Monty Sullivan, president of the Louisiana Community and Technical College System, said he and the chancellors of the 12-institution system have been meeting for about 3 months, discussing in broad terms, what the next set of statewide goals will be. South Louisiana Community College, or SLCC in Lafayette, is one of the system's 12 institutions. The new plan will be about the people of Louisiana and what we are doing to help people connect with their economy and work, Sullivan said. The overall mantra continues to be, more people educated and skilled, more people working is good for Louisiana. The system in 2020 completed a 6-year plan. The goal was workforce preparedness with 6 broad goals, which were doubling the number of graduates, doubling the average earnings of graduates, quadrupling the numbers of transfers to 4-year colleges and universities, doubling the numbers of students served, quadrupling partnerships, and doubling assets. Results released last fall show the system met 4 of the 6 goals, shows substantial progress toward doubling its graduates, but missed badly on doubling the number of students. We were pleased with the performance over the 6-year period, Sullivan said in a telephone interview on Friday. The goals were established not for the college, but because they were the right thing to do. Graduates from the baseline year of 2014 increased from 19,810 to 33,428, short of the 40,000 graduate target, but substantially increased. We made as much progress in graduates as anyone in the country, Sullivan said. Doubling the number of students served, there were 164,465 students served in 2014, only 148,206 in 2020, marked a step back and was woefully short of the target of 325 students by 2020. Sullivan said the goal became less feasible as many Louisianians in the workforce opted for non-credit short-term workforce training. Under the definition of enrollment in 2013-2014, most of what we thought of being enrollment was credit-based, he said. Instead, the 2-year institution shifted to provide more training that was non-credit, but nonetheless was accepted by employers. The decline in enrollment also followed national higher education trends, which saw a stagnant number of students or declines by midway through the decade. By the time the pandemic arrived, enrollment everywhere in the U.S. had declined, especially at community colleges where students struggled were then their 4-year counterparts to pay for their educations while supporting themselves. But system performances on other goals showed impressive successes. For example, graduates' earnings, $723 million in 2014, more than doubled to $1.58 billion in 2020. Transfers to 4-year colleges increased from 2,149 in 2014 to 12,586 6 years later, more than the goal of 10,000 transfers. Most of those transfers, 7,258, went to the University of Louisiana's system's 9 campuses. Partnerships with multi-institution partners rose from 244 in 2014 to 1,951 in 2020, and assets grew from 24 million to 57 million and have continued to increase. Sullivan said those assets represented not philanthropic gifts, but investments because the system's business partners see value in programs we offer and the workforce we deliver to them. Looking ahead, LCTCS faces daunting challenges, among them plunging enrollments affecting 2-year campuses nationwide. At least for now, COVID-19 remains an imposing challenge in a largely rural and impoverished state, Sullivan said. Enrollment was down about 12% in spring and fall in system institutions. Part of the problem, he said, has been that the burden of funding higher education in Louisiana increasingly has fallen on the students, not the state, which has led to exclusion of some students, particularly those from at-risk populations. Nationwide enrollment among high school students going directly to college was down some 22%. Most of those numbers, Sullivan said, reflected downturns in enrollment from low-income areas. That means LCTCS goals, which may be released later in the spring, must include extending the system's outreach where gaps exist in college enrollment due to race or geographic location. We need to keep a focus on equity, he said of the next plan. Growing up in rural and poor Louisiana is different than growing up in suburban Louisiana. Sullivan said it's important to develop curriculum, particularly workforce-oriented programs, while anticipating where the jobs might be. For example, he said process technology programs and other programs oriented toward energy industry employment might be tweaked to acknowledge a shift from oil-fueled employment to the liquefied natural gas plants or to petrochemical plants. Part of that might follow shifts in energy focus that developed due to changes announced by the Biden administration, which has expressed an intention this week to move away from fossil fuel exploration and production. This week to move away from that might hurt energy focused economies like Louisiana's. Conversely, Sullivan said the Biden administration might benefit community colleges because of the new First Lady has extensive experience in teaching at community colleges and is a proponent of two-year schools. While Biden was vice president, his wife Jill taught writing at Northern Virginia Community College, while Sullivan was a vice chancellor in that state's two-year system. Sullivan said he met Jill Biden and was impressed with her dedication to students. Up next, March for Life at Home. Lafayette parishioners make a Eucharistic procession in support of anti-abortion cause by Ken Stickney, staff writer. Parishioners at Cathedral St. John the Evangelist in Lafayette did march on Washington streets for the anti-abortion cause this year, but they marched nonetheless. About 250 people participated in a Eucharistic progression Sunday night that started after evening mass at the downtown cathedral and continued on West Main Street to Lafayette Parish Courthouse, turned onto Lafayette Street and then to Covent Street before veering back to the church grounds at 515 Cathedral Street. The crowd included young group members or youth group members, families, and elderly couples. Several participants carried anti-abortion placards and lit candles. The marchers participated in the rosary as they marched for about 25 minutes. Traffic was light on the downtown streets. Participants wore masks on the march and either wore them to a post-procession event outside the cathedral or socially distanced. The Reverend Andrew Shoemaker, parochial vicar at the cathedral, said the church travels annually to the nation's capital to participate in the March for Life, which was scheduled for January 29th. The march supports anti-abortion activities and education. More organizers instead opted for a virtual march in Washington this year, citing the pandemic and pressures on law enforcement in Washington, D.C., since the Capitol was overrun by a violent mob on January 6th. Schumacher said the cathedral congregation usually holds a local event as well as a connection with the anniversary of the 1973 U.S. Supreme Court decision in Roe v. Wade, the case in which the justices struck down a Texas law banning abortion. Following the procession, Lance Strother, campus minister at St. Thomas More Catholic High School, offered testimony about the importance of unborn life learned when he and his wife Catherine lost a child to a miscarriage. And let's continue with our first public service announcement break of the morning. Pieces of Hope virtual open mic on Wednesday, tomorrow, January 27th at 7 p.m. The Festival Awards host the Pieces of Hope virtual open mic on Zoom, as they have been for the last 4 or 5 months. For 16 years, the festival has hosted the Grand Coteau-based event featuring writers, musicians, and storytellers. Due to the coronavirus pandemic, the creative community will gather online, coming together as an act of hope, come to share or just to listen and enjoy. The 2-hour open mic presents 20 writers and musicians, each performing for 5 minutes. Performers are from Lafayette and all over the country, and sometimes from international places as well. Make yourself a drink, grab some cheese and crackers, and sit back to enjoy some exquisite performances that will soothe, entertain, and enlighten. To join, just go to the Facebook page for Pieces of Hope Virtual Open Mic. The link to the Zoom Cafe will be available this week, so you can go there today and or tomorrow, just before 7 p.m., and be involved as an observer or a reader. Or contact Martha Garner at fowmartha@gmail.com or 337-804-2482. This free community event is suitable for all ages and is sponsored by the Festival of World's Cultural Arts Collective. And yours truly will be the host for that event tomorrow night. Continuing with the Acadiana news, local firm tapped for Marine Defense System by Adam Daigle, the Acadiana business editor. A South Louisiana-based shipbuilder has been selected to develop and implement the autonomous naval defense system for the U.S. Marine Corps. Metal Shark, based in Franklin, was chosen for the long-range unmanned surface vessel system, which will usher in a new technology that will feature unmanned vessels traveling extensively and transporting loitering munitions to address targets on sea and land, according to a company announcement Monday. This tiered, scalable weapon system will be able to track and destroy targets at range throughout the battle space. The vessels will have the option of being manned and will carry multiple payloads, which will be capable of autonomously launching and retrieving. The LUSV program represents a significant milestone for autonomous technology for the defense world and for the entire shipbuilding industry, Metalshock CEO Chris Allard said. We are thrilled to be integrating advanced autonomy and command and control capability into these highly specialized surface vessels to provide the Marine Corps with a next generation system. Metalshark is enlisted autonomous technology developer Spatial Integrated Systems, recently acquired by Huntington Ingalls Industry to provide the autonomy solutions. The developer specializes in multi-vessel collaborative swarming autonomous capabilities, sensor fusion, and perception. Under the agreement with the Marines, Metalshark will design, build, test, and implement the vessels and will handle the integration of the autonomy system and an advanced command and control software suite. The company will also produce manned support vessels for the LUSV system, utilizing its 40 defined military patrol craft platforms, which it is producing to create the Navy's new patrol boat fleet, 40 PB. It will also provide the Marines with associated program management, system engineering, configuration management, quality assurance, logistical support, and the development of technical publications and manuals. The LUSV program is the latest success from Metalshark's Shark Tech Autonomous Vessels division, which launched in 2018 and focuses on unmanned vessel technology. Metalshark specializes in the design and construction of welded aluminum and steel vessels up to 300 feet for defense, law enforcement, and commercial operators. Customers include all branches of the U.S. Armed Forces, foreign militaries, law enforcement agencies, fire departments, passenger vessel operators, and other clients worldwide. It employs over 500 at its facilities in Louisiana, Alabama, and Croatia. Turning to the crime blotter that's put together by the Advocate staff reports, first story up, police ID victim in Opelousas shooting. The Opelousas Police Department has identified the victim in a Saturday fatal shooting as 37-year-old Kelly Guidry. Officers said the shooting took place just before 8:30 p.m. Saturday in the area of North Market and Cheney Streets, or North Market and yes. Police said Guidry was discovered responsive at the scene, lying next to railroad tracks. He was unable to provide information on possible suspects involved in the shooting. Guidry was transported to a hospital where he succumbed to his injuries. Police said that several homes and businesses were also struck by gunfire during the incident, and that's Cheney, North Market, and Cheney Streets. Finally got it in the right pronunciation in my head. Washington police probe deadly shooting. Police in the town of Washington are investigating a deadly shooting. The incident happened late Friday in the 400 block of Gordon Street, police said. Two men were arguing, and one shot the other with a shotgun, police said. The victim was struck in the chest and died from his wounds, according to police. The identity of the victim has not been released pending notification of next of kin, police said. In Calcasieu, the sheriff is in quotes, "We have to get control of our kids." Calcasieu Sheriff Tony Macuso called a news conference Sunday to talk about the stabbing at a Lake Charles Walmart that left a 15-year-old girl dead and a 13-year-old accused of murder. Three other girls, aged 14, 13, and 12, also are accused in connection with the death. The accuser said the girls allegedly stole knives from Walmart to stab the victims. He said the entire case was recorded on social media with videos and posts and pictures that are, quote unquote, very disturbing. He also said that this is the third homicide in 6 months involving children younger than 16 years of age. We have a problem in our community we're going to have to address, he said. They come from all backgrounds, all races. This is just a problem we are having with children having access to weapons or stealing weapons. It's just heartbreaking when we have to come back in and pick up the pieces because so many families are damaged. This is a cycle that we have to stop, and we're just fed up with it. Mancuso said that immediately all law enforcement in the parish will be aggressively enforcing curfews set by state and local laws, 11 p.m. to 5 a.m. Monday through Thursdays, and midnight to 5 a.m. on weekends. Okay, folks, we now turn to our state news. First story up, of course, is about the coronavirus vaccine. The vaccine rollout in Louisiana faster in some cities, regions than others. Article by Sam Carlin and Jeff Adelson. Residents in New Orleans and Louisiana's other southeastern parishes are receiving coronavirus vaccines at a much faster rate than in the rest of the state, prompting a shift in how public health officials plan to distribute future doses. Roughly 7.4% of residents in the New Orleans region have gotten at least one shot, according to data released Friday by the Louisiana Department of Health. It is the highest percentage of the population across all of the state's 9 public health regions, and more than double the rate in the Lake Charles area, where just 3.1% of people have received a shot. In the Baton Rouge area, as well on the North Shore of Lake Pontchartrain, about 6% of residents have received at least one dose. In the region around Lafayette, 4.6 people have gotten a vaccine. A large part of the disparity is likely due to a higher concentration of hospitals and other healthcare services in New Orleans and other cities. The New Orleans region has roughly 3,300 hospital beds, which is about 1,000 more than the next highest region, and also is home to Ochsner Health and LCMC Health, 2 of the state's largest hospital operators. Doctors, nurses, and other healthcare workers were prioritized during the first weeks of the vaccine rollout. Still, the data has led to state officials to shift how they plan to ship vaccines to ensure supplies that are still hard to come by are getting to people throughout the state. Dr. Joe Cantor, the state health officer, said the health department will start sending out doses to each of the state's 9 health regions based on population. If there are some inequities in what the regions receive, we will address that over the next couple of weeks, Cantor said. We should all see these discrepancies get less and less each week going forward. Allie Neal, spokesperson for the Louisiana Department of Health, said per capita, the allocation model will take time to implement, but that the state is beginning the shift this week. The move comes as coronavirus cases remain near all-time highs across Louisiana, and demand for the 2 federally authorized vaccines far outstrips supplies. On Monday, the state confirmed 1,992 new cases and 26 new deaths from COVID-19. The numbers reflected 2 days of data. In recent days, residents over 70, the group currently eligible to receive vaccinations, along with healthcare workers, have reported long waits and canceled appointments. Governor John Bel Edwards announced that Louisiana was getting far fewer doses in coming weeks than federal officials had initially indicated. In the first weeks of the state's immunization effort that began in mid-December, the state shipped vaccines to hospitals based on how many staff members worked at each facility. At that time, vaccines were limited to hospital workers and those who lived or worked in long-term care facilities like nursing homes, where distribution was handled by the federal government via Walgreens and CVS. After expanding eligibility to more healthcare workers and people 70 and older on January 4th, Cantor said the state was still limited in where it set the vaccine by the number of providers who are assigned to take up vaccines. Now that the state has a list of 1,000 providers, he said Louisiana has enough hospitals, pharmacies, and other facilities to distribute vaccine doses by population. He noted the federal government had largely distributed vaccines on a per capita basis to states. The new method for deciding where to ship vaccines is expected to boost regions that have seen lagging numbers so far, but it could also exacerbate the canceling of appointments at some of the larger health systems in New Orleans and other areas that have received the largest share of doses to date. Ochsner Health, the state's largest health institution, received only about 1,950 first doses this week at its main campus in Jefferson Parish, according to Ochsner Chief Executive Warner Thomas. The week of January 4th, the first time people over 70 had access to the vaccine in Louisiana, Ochsner's Jefferson Parish facility received at least 9,450 doses, according to health department figures. It was not clear Monday to what extent the lower number of doses was a result of the new allocation model. Neal said Ochsner is still receiving vaccine, but we have put in place a new per capita allocation model. She added the state is working each week to get more equitable coverage. It's not perfect, but it is getting better and will continue to get better, Neal said. It's tough, we know, and not ideal for planning, but we appreciate providers understanding none of us can make assumptions or guarantees about future allocations. We are all in this together. Edwards said last week he expects the state will receive roughly flat shipments around 58,000 doses a week for the next month or longer. After scheduling more than 100,000 vaccination appointments over several weeks, Ochsner has canceled roughly 21,000 appointments, Thomas said in a news briefing Monday, citing supply issues. Cantor has attributed some of the cancellations among providers to optimism following the Trump administration's January 12th announcement that it would no longer hold back second doses. But that windfall never materialized after states quickly learned that prior administration didn't have a stockpile to send out. Okay, we're about halfway through our morning broadcast of Local News Live. So we usually at this time we go to our day in history and the Zodiac, or the horoscope, as I like to refer to it as. And then we'll have a little entertainment news. I'll continue with my Rolling Stones coverage of 80 noted musicians who passed away last year, 2020. Today is Tuesday, January 26th, the 26th day of 2021. There are potentially 339 shopping days left in the year. Today's highlight in history: on January 26, 2020, NBA legend Kobe Bryant, his 13-year-old daughter, and 7 others were killed when their helicopter plunged into a steep hillside in dense morning fog in Southern California. The former Lakers star was only 41 years old, and all the sports fans mourned that day because Kobe Bryant was and will be considered one of the best to ever be on the basketball court. On this date, in 1788, the first European settlers in Australia, led by Captain Arthur Phillip, landed in present-day Sydney. In 1907, on this day, Congress passed the Tillman Act, which prohibited corporations from making direct campaign contributions to federal election candidates. In 1960, the National Football League, or NFL, team owners chose Pete Rozelle to be the new commissioner, succeeding the late Bert Bell. In 1961, President John F. Kennedy appointed Janet J. Travell to be his personal physician. She was the first woman to hold the job. In 1962, the United States launched Ranger 3 to land scientific instruments on the moon, but the probe ended up missing its target by more than 22,000 miles. 1988, the Andrew Lloyd Webber musical Phantom of the Opera opened at Broadway's Majestic Theater. In 1992, Democratic presidential candidate Bill Clinton, appearing with his wife Hillary on CBS 60 Minutes, acknowledged causing pain in my marriage, but said past problems were not relevant to the campaign. Also on this date in 1994, a scare occurred during a visit to Sydney, Australia by Britain's Prince Charles as college student David Kang lunged at the prince, firing 2 blank shots from a starter's pistol. Kang was later sentenced to 500 hours of community service. Also on this date in 1998, President Bill Clinton forcefully having an affair with a former White House intern, telling reporters, "I did not have sexual relations with that woman, Miss Lewinsky." In 2005, a U.S. Marine helicopter crashed in western Iraq, killing 30 Marines and a Navy medic on board. 10 years ago, speaking in Manitowoc, Wisconsin, President Barack Obama campaigned vigorously for his revamped economic message, warning that other countries were grasping for first place in the global marketplace as the U.S. fell down on the job. 5 years ago, the FBI arrested the leaders of an armed group that was occupying a national wildlife refuge in Oregon for more than 3 weeks during a traffic stop that left one man, Robert Lavoy Finicum, dead. 1 year ago, the U.S. consulate in the Chinese city of Wuhan, the epicenter of the coronavirus epidemic, said it would evacuate its personnel and some private citizens aboard a charter flight. 5 cases of the new coronavirus were confirmed in the United States, including new cases in California and Arizona. All involve people who had traveled to Wuhan. Today's birthdays: cartoonist Jules Pfeiffer is 92 years old. Wow. Sportscaster actor Bob Uecker, 86. Actor Scott Glenn is 82 years old today. Singer Jean Knight, 78. Activist Angela Davis, 77. Actor Richard Portnow is 74. Rock musician Corky Lang from the group Mountain and a few other rock and roll groups of his era is 73. Actor David Strathairn is 72. Alt country singer-songwriter Lucinda Williams, who is originally from Louisiana, is 68. Actor, comedian, talk show host Ellen DeGeneres is 63 today. Hockey, and she's originally from New Orleans. Hockey Hall of Famer Wayne Gretzky, 60. Gospel singer Kirk Franklin, 51. Actor Matilda, I can't pronounce her last name, so we'll move on. Actor Gilles Marini is 45. Looking at the zodiac of the horoscope, if you're an Aquarius, January 20th through February 19th, refuse to let negativity set in, regardless of what those around you do or say. Keep your emotions under control and set a standard for others. Pisces, February 12th and March 20th, make changes at home to suit your needs. Feeling comfortable encourages you to do things that make you happy. Reach out to someone who makes a difference in your life. Aries, March 21st through April 19th, be conscious of what's happening around you. Look for solutions that are fair and practical. Learn from mistakes and make adjustments that will help you achieve the success you desire. Taurus, April 20th through May 20th, keep things simple. Don't alter your life because of what someone else does. Use your imagination to come up with a plan that will utilize your skills. Take ownership of your life and decisions. Geminis, May 21st through June 20th, seek refuge in what you know and what you can do, not in what others want. Manage your money well, and don't make donations you cannot afford. Take better care of yourself. Cancer, June 21st through July 22nd, put more thought into how you do a job and take care of your responsibilities. Taking a different approach will draw the attention of someone influential. Leos, July 23rd through August 22nd, keep your secrets to yourself. Someone will use personal information against you if you are too trusting. Look for ways to stabilize your life. Focus on saving and personal growth. Virgo, my birth sign, August 23rd through September 22nd. You'll get help when needed. A friendly gesture will bring higher returns. Fitness, self-improvement, and quality time with someone special are favored. Keep a plan and make a plan and keep moving. Libra, September 23rd through October 23rd. Emotions will service if you mix business with pleasure. Choose your words carefully and direct your energy into something constructive. Use your imagination. Scorpio, October 24th through November 22nd, do your own thing. Refuse to let anyone draw you into an impossible or confounding situation. Soul searching will lead to self-improvement and greater confidence. Sagittarius, November 23rd through December 21st. A change at home may be upsetting, but in the end, you'll adjust. It's time to embrace new beginnings and discard what no longer works for you. A change of scenery will be enlightening. Capricorn, December 22nd through January 19th. This will be our last sign of the morning. The changes you make should result in greater comfort for you and your loved ones. Look over your options and weigh the pros and cons. Ask for the approval of anyone affected by what you do. And as always, the zodiac or horoscope is an entertainment feature, and it is not based on scientific fact. All right, let's turn real quickly to the 5 musicians next on my list of the Rolling Stones 80 noted musicians that passed away in the year of 2020. Next up is Walter Lure. Walter Lure was Johnny Thunders and the Heartbreakers guitarist, and he died in 2020 at the age of 71. He was a punk rocker turned stockbroker, and he was the last surviving member of punk legends LAMF lineup. Okay, next on the list is Jack Sherman. Jack Sherman was a former Red Hot Chili Peppers guitarist and died at the age of 64. Sherman, who replaced founding member Hillel Slovak in December of 1983, played on self-titled debut album and co-wrote much of Freaky Styley. Okay, next on the list is Frankie Benelli. Quiet Riot's Frankie Benelli, dead at 68. The drummer played on Come On Feel the Noise and Mental Health, had been diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer last spring. Next up, Todd Nance. Todd Nance played for the group Widespread Panic. He was a founding drummer, and he passed away at the age of 57. He wrote great songs and was a giving and forgiving collaborator, band said of longtime drummer. And finally, up this morning, Malik B. The Roots rapper Malik B. died at the age of 47. And there's a quote here by Questlove and Black Thought. The quote is, "May he be remembered for his devotion to Islam, his loving brotherhood, and his innovation as one of the most gifted MCs of all time." Okay, let's get back into the news. Continuing with the state news, audit blasts DEQ air pollution enforcement by Mark Schiffelstein, staff writer. The Louisiana Department of Environmental Quality needs to do a better job of identifying industrial polluters that don't properly report emission violations and enforce those violations more aggressively, according to a management audit made public Monday by the Louisiana Legislative Auditor's Office. The report found that the time it took for LDEQ to issue enforcement actions after a known violation more than doubled between fiscal years 2015 and 2019, from nearly 10 months to nearly 20 months. As a result, there is a risk that facilities may have violations that remain uncorrected for years, an audit summary said. Best practices state that effective enforcement includes swift and predictable responses to violations. Auditors also found that it could take as long as 9 years from the time a company was called for violating emission standards before it was ordered to pay a fine or had a settlement approved requiring the company to pay for a mitigation project. The auditors also found the agency didn't adequately track the penalties it had assessed or whether the penalties were paid. The DEQ also needs to do a better job identifying facilities that failed to submit self-monitoring reports on emissions and to speed its review of the reports for violations, the audit said. Part of the agency's enforcement problems can be traced to DEQ's a reduced number of employees' high workloads, frequent staff turnover, and ineffective data systems, the audit said. Many of the audit's findings track those of a 2019 investigations by the Times-Picayune, The Advocate, and ProPublica. Overall, we found DEQ could strengthen its monitoring and enforcement processes by identifying violations and issuing enforcement actions in a timelier manner, Pupera said in a cover letter to the report. Louisiana has the highest toxic air emissions per square mile of any state, the report said, based on data gathered by the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency's 2018 Toxics Release Inventory, a self-reported measurement of toxic chemicals released into the air, land, and water by individual facilities. Based on TRI data, the audit said in 2018, Louisiana had an average of 1,239 pounds of toxic air releases per square mile. Ohio, the second highest state, averaged 899 pounds per square mile. The audit also pointed to the EPA's most recent National Air Toxics Assessment from 2014, which identified a number of Louisiana locations that have a high potential for cancer risks of high respiratory illnesses hazards linked to emissions from nearby manufacturing facilities. Excuse me. Thank you. That assessment also has found numerous locations near chemical and other manufacturing facilities where residents are at higher risk of breathing problems, the audit said. But the audit also pointed out that its criticisms come amid better news about some forms of air pollution in Louisiana. It's pointed out that the EPA's Air Now website's daily reports of air pollution issues, mostly ground level ozone and particulate matter, indicated that good air quality days in Louisiana increased by 21% between 2008 and 2018. And the number of unhealthy days for sensitive groups decreased by 71%. Those air findings were focused on only 6 major pollutants: ground level ozone, particulate pollution, carbon monoxide, and 2 ozone constituents, sulfur dioxide and nitrogen dioxide. Information about those pollutants are collected at the 24 DEQ air monitoring stations in the state. The audit noted that several areas of the state are highly industrialized and have high concentrations of air pollution involving chemicals not measured by Air Now. The audit looked at DEQ air permitting records from fiscal year 2015 through 2018, including 750 active major permits, including petrochemical, refining, and electric utility plants, and between 6,000 and 8,000 active minor permits, which can include smaller local businesses. The report included 11 major recommendations. A response included in the report from DEQ Secretary Jack Carr Brown said the agency generally agreed with 10 of them. The only one there are at odds over is a recommendation that DEQ inspectors take photographs or gather other hard evidence that will show inspections actually take place. Brown pointed out their inspectors fill out a field interview form during the inspection that is left at the facility, and that copies are signed by both inspectors and facility employees. But the audit report pointed out that the DEQ had to notify both the state legislative auditor and EPA's inspector general that a former employee had falsified at least 3 compliance investigations. The facilities involved were not named in that report. A spokesperson for DEQ said the skipped inspections were the fault of an employee who left the agency before they were discovered. When the records were reviewed, key documents for these inspections were missing, said DEQ spokesperson Gregory Langley. LTEQ immediately contacted the facilities and all confirmed that the inspector in question was not at the facility on the date of the scheduled inspection, although they were unaware of the missed inspections. LTEQ immediately sent inspectors to the facilities to perform the missed inspections, and the agency self-reported the operations or omissions to the EPA Inspector General, Langley said. EPA was satisfied with LTEQ's actions. The new audit focused on the complex process and especially the length of time needed to follow up on reports filed by major permit holders. When facilities submit required reports, the enforcement staff performs a cursory review to identify high priority violations, the audit said. However, staff does not address any other violations at this time of the cursory review, such as submitting the report late or emissions that exceed permit limits, the audit said. Instead, in-depth reviews of the reports occur when officials are preparing for or have completed inspections, which are supposed to occur once every 2 years for every major permit holder. Okay, we're going to move on now to continued state news. Court sides with Edwards over virus order. Ruling rejects a pastor's argument First Amendment rights violated by David J. Mitchell, staff writer. Another judge has ruled that Governor John Bel Edwards' efforts to protect the public during the pandemic trumps a church pastor's claim that the First Amendment gives him and the others the right to gather in large groups, regardless of the possible danger to the community at large. Central Pastor Tony Spell went to court Monday, believing 19th Judicial District Judge Ebony Johnson Rose would void 6 criminal complaints against him and asserted she ruled against God after failing to do so. Prosecutors alleged Spell violated strict public gathering capacity limits it was put in place last spring as the coronavirus pandemic took hold in Louisiana. About 8,000 Louisiana residents have died from COVID-19, the disease caused by the virus. Spell faces $3,000 in fines. Currently, though, daily case numbers are far higher now than they were then. There are also vaccines and new therapies, but also new viral mutations that are more contagious. Edwards' restrictions for business and places of worship, however, are much looser. Churches can operate at 75% capacity. As hospitalization and the death toll climbed in March and April, Spell sent up several showdowns with authorities by continuing to hold services that drew hundreds of worshipers at his Life Tabernacle Church off Hooper Road. He welcomed media attention of this defiance, criticized Edwards over the restrictions as an infringement on constitutional protections for the free exercise of religion, and ultimately sought relief in state and federal courts. He's lost on all fronts so far. Spell, who has pleaded not guilty to the charges, faces jail time in addition to a $500 fine on each accusation that 6 times last March he violated orders limiting public gatherings to 50 and then just 10 people. The restrictions were in place when far less was known about the virus. The pastor did not attend the criminal hearing Monday because he said he refused to wear a mask to enter the courthouse, which is following Centers for Disease Control and Prevention guidance promoted as a means to control the pandemic. He instead waited outside and across the street from the courthouse with a few dozen of his supporters and church members who held up signs and a U.S. flag and wore T-shirts protesting the state mask mandate. Spell and his supporters were unmasked at that time. Spell asserted outside court that he had broken no laws and considered his case an open and shut one that should have gone the other way. He said he planned to appeal the Louisiana First Circuit Court of Appeal, but also believed judgment was also pending for those who worked to undermine religious liberties. You just ruled against God, so you get ready for the judgment of God, Spell said to the claps and affirmations of some of his followers behind him. In a later interview, Spell urged people to stand up for their liberties and called Edwards a Roman Catholic, a liar, godless, and a tyrant, the latter for ignoring Republicans who asked him to more quickly reopen the state's economy. The governor hates Christians. If he says anything different, he's a liar. He says all these people behind me are lawbreakers, and we're not. The lawbreakers right over there in the governor's mansion, Spell said. That was a quote. Edwards said he was pleased with the judge's ruling and that with the pandemic continuing, wearing a mask and remaining socially distanced were the responsible approach. Quote, my Christian Catholic faith teaches me that we should be good neighbors to one another, and that includes doing what we can to protect each other from this terrible virus, end quote, Edwards said. The vaccine is not available to everyone at this time, but masks are. The best and easiest thing that we can do, all can do, is wear one to help us get back to where we all want to be, Edwards said. Inside the courthouse earlier, Spell's attorney, Jeff Wittenbrink, argued Edwards' orders unfairly and illegally singled out religious organizations for restrictions while allowing businesses like Walmart and LUS to operate without social distancing or masking requirements and no gathering limits. Wittenbrink printed to a recent U.S. Supreme Court ruling that had overturned gathering restrictions in New York that the plaintiffs asserted had been aimed at conservative Jewish synagogues and Catholic churches. Those places of worship had put in zones that limited their attendance to 10 or 25 people, though many had capacities of more than 1,000, as Life Tabernacle does. The ruling included concurring options or opinions that rejected a conclusion from Chief Justice John Roberts in an early California case on coronavirus restrictions that a state could make distinctions among businesses that pose different levels of risk of spread. For example, between an hour or more in the church pews, singing and praying versus a quick pass through the store. I would suggest, Your Honor, that Chief Justice Roberts had probably never stood in line at a Walmart on a Saturday, because the fact of the matter is you can stand there in a long line with a lot of people for a lot of time in close contact, Brink said. He argued later that the Louisiana Constitution also offers greater protections for the First Amendment rights than even the U.S. Constitution, and the state law giving Edwards the power to act on emergencies limits him from taking such strong restrictions on religious liberties. But Darrell Papillon, Special Assistant District Attorney Hilo Moore, argued that Louisiana's restrictions were applied generally, unlike New York's, and neutrally, and so they were distinct from the strict New York limits. He said that at the time the charges were made against Spell, Edwards was responding to the early days of the outbreak when New Orleans was one of 3 hotspots in the nation and Louisiana was under a declared emergency. Despite the comparisons to retailers, he argued the rules were actually looser on places of worship than other similarly situated businesses at the time, like bars and restaurants, which couldn't have indoor activities then. Papillon added that the Supreme Court has long recognized that the First Amendment can't be used as a reason to break the law, whether it be having multiple wives or smoking peyote as a religious practice. Well, that sounds interesting. And let's see, okay. Just checking the length of the story here. Moving on, and if a religion begins to declare that it can do whatever it wants to do, that we are no longer a nation of laws, we are a nation that is under the judgment, the decision, the intent of a man or woman who decides that they will not obey the law, Papillon said. All right, moving on. And I think I already reported earlier, but I will report again, the coronavirus cases in LA. So far, as of yesterday, there were 8,064 deaths and 339,207 positive cases of the coronavirus. Turning to the sports news, UL men's basketball coach tests positive with COVID-19. Marlin will miss key road trip to the Sun Belt leading Texas State by Kevin Foote, sports and staff writer. In what could end up being the weekend remaining in the Sun Belt Conference men's basketball regular season, the UL Raging Cajuns will be traveling to Texas State this weekend without head coach Bob Marlin. Marlin tested positive for COVID-19 on Sunday morning and again on Monday, sending him to quarantine and making him unavailable for the weekend series in San Marcos, Texas. His Raging Cajuns currently stand 11-4 overall, 5-3 in the district in the Sun Belt play, and one game behind Sun Belt West leader Texas State, who is 11-4 and 5-1 in the conference play. The two teams split a pair in Lafayette on January 1 through 2nd, Cajuns winning the opener 83-77 in overtime and falling 71-59 in Game 2. UL's Director of Operations Mike Murphy said the staff is cautiously optimistic about the team's status heading into this key road trip. On the other hand, Murphy said the coaching staff is prepared for this unfortunate situation. He's done a really good job with the staff and roles in stressing, do your job. And I think that's worked very well, Murphy insisted. Our staff is very cohesive. Everyone works well together. It's a hand in glove type situation. Murphy said Marlin has mild symptoms, but declined to comment on if anyone else on the team will be unavailable this weekend. Right, and let's look at the funerals in the Acadiana area for today. Jean Falk at the David Funeral Chapel at 1 p.m. Maria Hebert, Benjamin Memorial Garden Chapel in Carriacou at 6 p.m. and Robert Landry at Fountain Memorial Funeral Home in Lafayette at 1 p.m. Well, that concludes today's broadcast of Local News Live for January 26, 2021. My name is Bruce Cohen, will always be Bruce Cohen. You can join us every Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. at our AOC 1, Cypress Street, which is one of our TV stations, Cypress Street Radio, our online streaming radio service, or our YouTube channel, AOC Community Media. You can also read these stories and more at theadvocate.com. To find out how you can volunteer and become part of the newspaper reading family, like myself, And more information on volunteer opportunities and all about AOC, please go to aocinc.org. That's aocinc.org. When you're at that homepage, click down on the volunteer tab, go to the newspaper reading volunteer form, fill out that form, and Miss Mandy or Mr. Matt will be in touch with you and set you up. Since the pandemic, we have been situated in our home studios like myself, which I can do in my PJs, which I enjoy doing. But hopefully at some point in time this coming year, we'll be able to get back into the podcast booths at the AOC facilities in downtown Lafayette. But for now, I wish you well. I want you to stay healthy. I want you to stay safe. And I want you to stay smart. Be smart, people. Be real smart and be real careful when you're out there amongst people that you don't know. Like if you're going shopping or whatever, wear your mask. It's not a big deal. This variant, these strong variants that are appearing, they're asking, the experts are saying, keep it, double up on the mask. Just be very careful out there. Wash your hands, do everything that we've been doing, sanitizing. Please take care of yourself. Stop the spread so we can all get through this together. And again, this has been Bruce Cohen, Local News Live, signing off for the morning. I'll see you on the flip-flop.